Specialist Daniel Carter stared through the viewport at the massive structure floating in space. Stellar Command Academy, the most prestigious military institution in the Galactic Confederation, loomed before him like a gleaming metal lotus. As the shuttle approached, he straightened his uniform and took a deep breath. "Arrival in 3 minutes, human," announced the pilot, an azure-skinned alien named Admiral Tay, whose tentacles manipulated the controls with practiced precision. Carter nodded. After Earth's recent admission to the Confederation, the Academy's leadership had decided to enroll a single human as an experiment. That human was him. As he stepped onto the Academy's main deck, whispers followed him through the corridors. Most species considered humans primitive, barely worthy of Confederation membership. Academy Overseer June watched from a balcony, his scaled face unreadable. "Welcome to Stellar Command," said a tall, silver-eyed officer named Captain Day. "Your physical evaluation begins immediately." The tests were brutal, designed for species far stronger than humans. But Carter surprised everyone, especially when he kept running after his oxygen supply was deliberately reduced to near-fatal levels. "Interesting," muttered Overseer June. "The human shows unusual resilience." That evening, Carter was assigned to Delta Squadron, a collection of misfits and outcasts from across the galaxy. His new squadmates glared at him with 6, 8, or in one case, no eyes at all. "Look what they sent us now," growled Cadet Juan, a rocky-skinned behemoth. "A soft-bodied human. This should be amusing." Carter stood tall despite the stares. The room they called home was circular with 8 sleeping pods arranged like petals. His pod was the smallest. The air smelled strange, like metal and something sweet he couldn't name. "I am Squad Leader Kong," said a thin alien with blue skin that glowed slightly. "You will follow our rules or fail." Carter placed his few belongings in his pod. Earth had been allowed into the Confederation only after proving humans could fight. The war with the Draxi had shown the galaxy that humans were tough. But one victory wasn't enough for respect. The next morning, training began before the station's artificial dawn. The squad ran laps around the massive gravity ring. To the aliens, this was a light warm-up. To Carter, each step felt like running through mud. "Tired already, human?" laughed Cadet Young, who moved on 6 legs like a giant insect. "We haven't even started." After running came weapons training. The standard Confederation weapon was a light rifle that fired energy bolts. Carter had never held one before. It was lighter than he expected but harder to aim. "Your arms shake too much," said Instructor Min, whose 4 eyes blinked in different patterns. "Humans are so unstable." Carter missed most targets. The other cadets laughed. But he kept trying, adjusting his stance each time. At lunch, Carter sat alone. The food was a gray paste that tasted like nothing. The other cadets kept their distance, speaking languages his translator couldn't catch. In the afternoon, they faced the gauntlet, an obstacle course that changed randomly. Carter watched as his squadmates leaped over walls, swung across gaps, and crawled under barriers with ease. "Your turn, human," called Instructor Min. "Try not to die." Carter stepped onto the platform. Immediately, the floor tilted sharply. He slid toward the edge but grabbed a handhold just in time. A wall rose before him, too smooth to climb normally. The other cadets waited for him to fail. But Carter had been trained on Earth to overcome obstacles. He removed his boots for better grip and found tiny cracks in the wall. Slowly, painfully, he climbed. "He's actually doing it," whispered Cadet Moon to the others. The next challenge was worse, a series of platforms over a deep pit. The gaps were too wide for human legs. Carter studied the pattern, then surprised everyone by dropping to hang from the edge of one platform. He swung his body like a pendulum, building momentum before releasing and flying across the gap. He landed hard but made it. Blood trickled from his knee, red against the white floor. "Red blood," said Cadet Juan with disgust. "So primitive." By the time Carter finished the course, he was last by many minutes. His body ached. But he had finished when they thought he would quit. That night, as lights dimmed in their quarters, Carter lay in his pod listening to the others talk. He won't last a week, said Cadet Young. Probably not, agreed Cadet Moon. But he didn't quit today. Carter smiled in the darkness. They were right about one thing, he was different. But they were wrong about what that meant. Humans had something the other species didn't understand yet, determination. Tomorrow would be harder. But Carter would be ready. The experiment had only just begun. The simulation chamber exploded with light as Carter dove behind a holographic barrier. 3 weeks at the academy had taught him one thing: everything here was designed to make him fail. Movement calculations insufficient, chirped the academy AI. Human cadet eliminated. Carter slammed his fist against the wall. That's the 4th time today. Perhaps humans simply lack the neural capacity for advanced combat, said his squadmate Jean, 6 slender arms adjusting her uniform. Her species could process information at 4 times human speed. Delta Squadron consistently ranked last in all exercises. Carter's presence only worsened their standing, and they made sure he knew it. His equipment mysteriously malfunctioned. His food rations disappeared. Commander Soon, the Academy's combat instructor, seemed particularly determined to see Carter wash out. Humans rely on primitive projectile weapons, he announced during tactics class. They have no place in modern warfare. But Carter had an advantage none of them understood: humans excel at improvisation. During the low-atmosphere survival test, when Delta Squadron's shelter collapsed in a storm, Carter used techniques from Earth's ancient armies to build a new one. When their communications failed during a mountain exercise, he created a signal system using reflected light. After Carter saved Cadet Juan from a malfunctioning gravity well, something changed. Delta Squadron began to work together, combining their diverse abilities with Carter's unconventional thinking. Perhaps, Jean admitted reluctantly, there is something to be learned from human methods. Carter wiped sweat from his eyes as he left the simulation chamber. The hallway lights dimmed to accommodate species with sensitive vision. Most days, he felt like the academy itself rejected his presence. In the mess hall, he found an empty table. As he ate, he noticed Cadet Juan watching him from across the room. The rocky-skinned alien still hadn't thanked him for the gravity well incident last week. "Mind if I join you?" asked a quiet voice. It was Cadet Gil, the smallest member of Delta Squadron. His 4 eyes blinked nervously. Carter nodded, surprised. "Sure. Your solution today was interesting," Gil said. "Not standard procedure, but it might have worked in real combat." Before Carter could respond, the Academy alarms blared. "All squadrons report to Training Zone 6, announced the AI system. Training Zone 6 was the most difficult area, a massive chamber that could simulate any environment. Today it had become a dense jungle with towering purple plants and thick mist. "Today's exercise, capture the command post," explained Commander Soon. "First squad to succeed wins extra rations for a week." Delta Squadron was given a starting position far from the objective. The other teams received better equipment and positions. "They want us to fail," muttered Cadet Young. "Then let's surprise them," Carter said. As other squads charged ahead, Carter gathered Delta Squadron in a circle. "The obvious routes will be heavily defended. We need to think differently." "What do you suggest, human?" asked Jean, skepticism in her voice. Carter pointed up. "The trees. No one looks up." Using vines and low branches, Carter showed them how to climb. Even Juan, despite his heavy body, managed to follow. They moved above the other teams, watching them fight and tire themselves out. At one point, Carter slipped and nearly fell. A strong hand caught him. Juan had reached out to save him. "Consider us even," the rocky alien rumbled. Near the command post, they encountered a problem. The final approach was an open field with no cover. Motion sensors would detect any movement. "Impossible," said Jean. "We cannot pass undetected." Carter looked at his teammates, each with different abilities. "What if we don't need to be undetected? What if we overload the sensors instead?" He explained his plan. Using parts from their equipment, they created small devices that mimicked movement signatures. They threw these in all directions around the field. The sensors will register so many false targets they'll become useless, Carter explained. The plan worked. As alarms blared across the field, the defense systems couldn't determine real targets from false ones. Delta Squadron sprinted across, reaching the command post before any other team. Commander Soon's face showed shock when Delta Squadron emerged victorious. How did you? This was not expected. Back in their quarters that night, the mood had changed. Jean approached Carter with what he now recognized as her species' version of a smile. Your human tricks are strange, but effective, she admitted. Perhaps you could teach us more? I'm still learning your methods too, Carter replied. Maybe we can teach each other. The next morning, Carter found his equipment repaired and his rations doubled. No one mentioned it, but he noticed Huan and Yang exchanging looks. During tactics class, Commander Soon called on Carter unexpectedly. Human, explain how your primitive species would approach a fortified position with superior forces. Carter stood. We would avoid direct confrontation. Find weaknesses. Use the environment. Turn enemy strengths into weaknesses. Primitive indeed, Soon said, but his tone had changed. There was curiosity there now, perhaps even respect. Later that week, Delta Squadron moved up 3 positions in the rankings. Other cadets began to watch Carter with new interest. The underdog was no longer just surviving, he was teaching the galaxy's best something new. 6 months later, Carter sat in the mess hall studying intercepted communications on his datapad. Something wasn't right. The Scourge activity near Sector 17 has increased by 300%, he told his squadmates. The Scourge, a mysterious collective of rogue planets, had been raiding Confederation outposts with increasing frequency. Official reports show no such increase, said Cadet Park, whose translucent skin rippled with doubt. Official reports are being altered, Carter replied. Delta Squadron had risen to 3rd in Academy rankings, but their success had created powerful enemies. Later that week, during infiltration training, Carter discovered an unauthorized transmission coming from Academy Overseer June's private quarters. The encryption was sophisticated, but Carter recognized military patterns similar to Earth's own classified communications. He's feeding information to someone, Carter told his squad. Fleet movements, defense codes, everything. Accusing an overseer is extremely serious, cautioned Jean. We need evidence. That night, Delta Squadron bypassed the Academy's security systems using techniques Carter had taught them, methods no other species would think to try. In June's private database, they found the truth: the Scourge was planning to attack the Academy itself, and June was helping them. The Overseer believed humans represented a dangerous evolutionary path that would eventually dominate the Confederation. We have to warn Command, said Carter. Too late, Park whispered, pointing to the tactical display. They're already here. The squad gathered around the small screen. 5 red dots appeared at the edge of the Academy's sensor range. Scourge warships, Jean confirmed, her 6 hands moving quickly over the controls. Their energy signatures match previous attack patterns. Carter's mind raced. Why would Overseer June betray the Academy? What could the Scourge offer him? They had found files in June's database, reports on human biology, psychology, and warfare. Notes in the margins showed fear, not just curiosity. He thinks we're dangerous, Juan said, reading over Carter's shoulder. Look at these calculations. He predicts humans will control the Confederation within 50 years. Carter shook his head. Earth just wants to be part of the galaxy, not rule it. Fear makes people do terrible things, Jill said quietly. Even smart people. They needed to act fast. The Academy housed over 3,000 cadets from 100 worlds. If it fell, the Confederation would lose a generation of officers. We need to alert Admiral Lee, Carter said. She's the only senior officer who might believe us. Delta Squadron moved through the station's maintenance tunnels. Carter had mapped them all during their 6 months of training. The aliens found it strange that a human would memorize escape routes, but on Earth, such planning was basic survival. They reached the communications hub undetected. Inside, 2 technicians monitored the systems. "We need to send an emergency message," Carter told them. "All communications must go through proper channels," one replied without looking up. Jean stepped forward. "Override code Alpha 73. This is a training exercise." The technicians hesitated, then moved aside. Jean had used her family connections to get the override codes. It was the first time she had ever broken Academy rules. Carter recorded a quick message explaining their discovery and sent it to Admiral Lee's personal channel. As they waited for a response, the station lights flickered. "They're already affecting our power systems," Park said, skin turning pale with fear. Carter's data pad beeped. "A message from Admiral Lee, evidence confirms your suspicions. Security teams dispatched to detain Overseer June. Prepare all cadets for possible evacuation." Relief flooded through Carter, but it was short-lived. The station alarm suddenly cut off mid-wail. "That's not good," Juan rumbled. "We need to get to the defensive systems," Carter said. "If June disabled them, we have to bring them back online." They raced through the corridors, now filled with confused cadets and instructors. No one knew what was happening. The official emergency channels remained silent. At the defense control room, they found the door sealed. Through the window, they could see 3 officers lying motionless on the floor. "Stand back," Juan said. His rocky skin hardened as he slammed his shoulder into the door. It took 3 hits before the metal gave way. Inside, Carter checked the system. Shield generators offline. Weapons systems locked. Communication arrays disabled. "Can you fix it?" Jean asked. "Not alone," Carter said. "But together, maybe." Each member of Delta Squadron had different skills. Gil understood computer systems better than anyone. Park could reach into small spaces with her flexible body. Jean knew the proper codes and protocols. Juan provided strength when needed. As they worked, the first explosions rocked the station. Through the viewport, they saw Scourge fighters attacking the outer rings. "They're targeting the power cores," Jean said, pointing to a diagram. "If they hit all 3, the station will lose life support." Carter reached a decision. "We can't restore all systems in time. We need to focus on the most important one." "Weapons," suggested Juan. "Communications," Carter replied. "If we can call for help, the Confederation fleet can save the Academy." They directed all their efforts to restoring the main communication array. As they worked, Carter's datapad showed security footage of Overseer June moving toward the docking bay with a small group of loyal officers. "He's trying to escape," Park said. "Let him run," Carter replied. "We have more important things to do." After 20 minutes of frantic work, the communication system hummed back to life. Carter sent out a distress call on all frequencies, giving the Scourge positions and attack patterns. As they finished, Commander soon burst into the room with a squad of senior cadets. "Delta Squadron," he said, surprise in his voice. "What are you doing here?" Carter pointed to the restored systems. "Saving the Academy, sir." Commander soon studied the tactical display. "The Confederation fleet will take at least an hour to reach us. We need to hold until then." Carter nodded. "Delta Squadron is ready, sir." Soon's expression changed to one of respect. "Then let's show the Scourge what Academy cadets can do, especially with a human leading the way." Alarms screamed throughout the station as the first explosions rocked the Academy. The attack had begun during graduation ceremonies when most senior officers were gathered in one location. "All defenses are offline," shouted a panicked cadet. In the command center, Overseer June calmly locked the blast doors. "The Scourge will cleanse the Confederation of its weakness," he announced. "Starting with the human experiment." But Carter had prepared Delta Squadron for this moment. While other cadets froze in confusion, his team moved with purpose, distributing weapons and organizing defense points. "Standard Confederation tactics won't work," Carter told the assembled cadets. We fight as humans fight asymmetrically. Using maintenance shafts and service corridors, Delta Squadron divided the invading forces, setting ambushes and creating confusion. Carter's Earth combat techniques, considered primitive by Confederation standards, proved devastatingly effective against enemies trained to counter only conventional galactic warfare. The human teaches them to think unpredictably, June realized with horror as he watched security feeds. This was not in our calculations. Carter led a small team through the station's superstructure, avoiding main corridors where Scourge forces were concentrated. Their target, the central control hub where June had barricaded himself. When they finally breached the command center, June stood waiting, weapon in hand. "You could never understand, human," he snarled. "Your kind will consume everything if left unchecked." "Maybe," Carter replied, "but today, we're saving everyone." The command center was a mess of broken screens and sparking wires. Behind June, the main view screen showed Scourge ships surrounding the Academy. 3 of his loyal officers stood with weapons aimed at Carter's team. "You brought Jean and Juan with you," June said, looking at Carter's companions. "How fitting. The best of their species, following a human into disaster." Jean stepped forward, her 6 hands empty in a sign of peace. "Overseer, please reconsider. The Scourge will not honor any deal you made." "You know nothing," June hissed. "I've studied humans for years. Their history is nothing but conquest and destruction. On their own world, they drove thousands of species to extinction." Carter kept his eyes on June's weapon. "That was our past. We learned from our mistakes." "Species don't change," June said. "The Scourge understands this. That's why they agreed to spare the Academy if I removed the human problem." A distant explosion shook the room. The lights flickered. "Does that sound like they're sparing anyone?" Juan asked, his rocky skin gleaming under the emergency lights. Doubt flashed across June's face. He checked the security feeds. Scourge soldiers were killing everyone they found, not just humans. "This wasn't the agreement," he whispered. Carter saw his chance. "You've been betrayed, just like you betrayed us. But it's not too late to fix this." Throughout the station, the battle raged. Cadets from 100 worlds fought with whatever weapons they could find. Some used the tactics Carter had taught them, hiding in air ducts, setting traps in dark corridors, using the station itself as a weapon. In the living quarters, Cadet Gil led a group defending the younger cadets. They had barricaded the doors with beds and tables. "Remember what Carter taught us," Gil told them. "They expect us to defend from inside the room. Instead, we'll attack from above." The cadets climbed into the ceiling space. When Scourge soldiers broke through the door, they found an empty room. Seconds later, the cadets dropped from above, surprising the enemy completely. In another section, Cadet Park used her translucent body to blend with the walls. As Scourge troops passed, she changed the direction signs, leading them in circles. Back in the command center, June's officers looked to him for direction. The security feeds showed the Scourge breaking their promises everywhere. "Sir, what should we do?" one asked. Before June could answer, the main screen activated. A Scourge commander appeared, his face hidden behind a black mask. "Overseer June. Your usefulness has ended. The Academy will be destroyed as an example to all who might ally with humans." The screen went dark. June stood frozen, the weight of his mistake crushing him. Carter stepped forward. "We don't have time for regret. Help us save what's left of the Academy." June looked at him for a long moment. Then he lowered his weapon. "The main systems can only be reactivated from here. The Scourge have locked me out, but perhaps together." Carter nodded to Jean and Juan. They moved to the control panels while he kept watch on June. "Why did you do it?" Carter asked quietly. "Really?" June's scaled face showed something like sadness. "Fear. In all my studies of humans, one thing was clear: you never stop. You push boundaries. You change everything you touch." "That's not always bad," Carter said. It is when the galaxy has been stable for 10,000 years, June replied. Working together, they managed to restore partial power to the defense systems. The Academy's shields flickered back to life around the central section. It's not enough, June said. The Scourge fleet will break through in minutes. Carter looked at the tactical display. We don't need to defeat them. We just need to hold until help arrives. He activated the communication system. All cadets, this is Specialist Carter. Fall back to Section 3. Repeat, all cadets to Section 3. We're making our stand. As his voice echoed through the station, something remarkable happened. Cadets who had been fighting separately began to move as one. Species that had never worked together formed perfect teams. The chaos of individual battles became a coordinated defense. June watched in amazement. They're listening to you. A human. No, Carter said, checking his weapon. They're listening to a fellow cadet who has a plan. That's all I've ever been. Reroute power to starboard shields. Carter commanded as another explosion rocked the station. Delta Squadron had retaken the command center, but the battle for the Academy continued to rage. Carter had reprogrammed the station's automated defenses using combat algorithms from Earth's military history, unpredictable patterns the Scourge couldn't anticipate. Their ships are adjusting formation, reported Jean. They've never seen these maneuvers before. They wouldn't have, Carter replied. These tactics are from the Battle of Thermopylae, 480 BCE. Throughout the station, cadets from all species rallied behind Carter's leadership. Species that had looked down on humans now fought alongside them, adopting Earth strategies thousands of years old yet completely new to galactic warfare. In the hangar bay, Carter faced Overseer June for the final confrontation. The betrayer had almost reached his escape ship. Your primitive violence proves my point, June hissed, activating an energy shield. Humans resort to brutality when challenged. No, Carter said, circling his opponent. Humans adapt. That's what you really fear. The duel that followed became legendary at the Academy, a human using simple combat techniques against an opponent with superior technology and strength. Carter didn't win with power, he won with strategy, using June's own momentum against him. 3 days later, as Confederation reinforcements finally arrived, Admiral Tay surveyed the damage. How did cadets defeat a Scourge assault force? He asked in disbelief. They had a human teaching them, replied Commander Soon, who had fought alongside Carter's squad. And that changed everything. 1 year later, the Academy created a new training division with Carter as its head instructor. His curriculum became mandatory for all cadets. Throughout the galaxy, potential enemies of the Confederation now factored humans into their strategic assessments. The experiment had succeeded beyond anyone's expectations, and for those who might threaten galactic peace, humanity had indeed become their worst nightmare. The battle for the Academy reached its peak as the Scourge flagship moved into firing position. Its main cannon glowed with deadly energy. 10 seconds to full charge. Jean called out, her 6 hands flying over the controls. Carter studied the tactical display. The Academy's shields were failing. Most weapon systems were damaged or offline. But they still had one advantage: the Scourge had never fought humans before. Transfer all power to the tractor beams, Carter ordered. The tractor beams? Cadet Park questioned. They're too weak to hold their ships. We're not going to hold them, Carter explained. We're going to move ourselves. It was a crazy plan. The Academy was massive, a station housing thousands. But the central core could detach in emergencies. As the Scourge cannon fired, Carter activated the tractor beams in reverse, pushing the Academy core sideways with all available power. The massive energy beam missed by meters, hitting one of the Scourge's own ships instead. It worked! Gil shouted as cheers erupted in the command center. But Carter knew they had only bought minutes. The Scourge would adjust their aim. He needed to end this now. Juan, Park, you're with me, Carter said. Jean, keep them distracted. They moved quickly through the damaged corridors. Bodies of cadets and scourge soldiers lay everywhere. The fighting had been brutal. As they reached the hangar bay, they saw Overseer June entering a small craft. "He's running," Juan growled. "No," Carter replied, watching June's movements. "He's going to the Scourge command ship. Look at his course calculations." Carter understood now. June had realized his mistake. The Scourge had lied to him. Now he was trying to fix things his own way by sacrificing himself. "We can't let him do this alone," Carter said. "He doesn't know how they think." They took another ship, a small Academy fighter with minimal weapons. As they launched, Carter contacted June. "We're coming with you," he said simply. There was a long pause before June replied. "This is my mistake to correct, human. And these are my friends to protect," Carter answered. "We do this together or not at all." The two small ships approached the massive Scourge flagship. Its black surface absorbed light rather than reflected it. Gun turrets tracked their approach. "They're targeting us," Park warned. "Good," Carter replied. "That means they're not targeting the Academy." They dodged and weaved through enemy fire. June's ship took a hit but kept going. Carter's flying was unlike anything the Scourge had seen, unpredictable, seemingly random moves that made no sense until they worked. They reached the flagship's docking bay. As they landed, Scourge soldiers surrounded them. "Follow my lead," Carter told his team as they exited their ship. The soldiers approached cautiously. They had never seen humans up close. Carter raised his hands in what looked like surrender. But as the soldiers came closer, he moved with lightning speed, disarming the first and using him as a shield against the others. Juan charged forward, his rocky body absorbing energy blasts. Park used her translucent form to confuse and disorient. Together, they fought their way to the ship's core. There they found June already working on the main systems. "The self-destruct sequence is active," he said without looking up. "But I cannot complete the final code." Carter moved to help him. Together, then. As they worked, the ship's commander arrived with elite guards. "The human," he hissed. "Our intelligence said you would be the most dangerous." "Your intelligence was right," Carter replied as he finished the code sequence. The ship began to shake. Warning alarms blared. "Time to go," Carter told his team. He looked at June. "All of us." The escape was as chaotic as their entry. But something had changed. June fought alongside them now, protecting Park when she was injured. They reached their ships just as the first explosions tore through the flagship. As they flew back to the Academy, the Scourge vessel erupted in flames. The remaining enemy ships, seeing their leadership destroyed, began to retreat. 3 days later, when Confederation reinforcements finally arrived, Admiral Tay could hardly believe the reports. Cadets defeated the Scourge? Impossible. Commander soon smiled as he watched Carter helping injured cadets. "Not impossible," he said. "Just unexpected. That's the human way." In the year that followed, the Academy was rebuilt. Carter was offered a position teaching tactics, a new course called Adaptive Strategy. Cadets from all species competed to join his class. Overseer June faced trial for his betrayal but was shown mercy due to his final actions. He asked to work with Carter, studying humanity not with fear but with understanding. On graduation day, Carter watched his students receive their commissions. Among them were members of Delta Squadron, now officers who would carry human strategies to every corner of the Confederation. "They feared what they didn't understand," Gil said, standing beside Carter. "Now they understand, and still fear, but with respect." Carter nodded. The experiment had come full circle. He had been sent to learn from the galaxy's best. Instead, he had taught them. For any who might threaten peace in the future, humanity had indeed become their worst nightmare, an opponent who never stopped learning, never stopped adapting, and never, ever gave up. The end.